we take off as we always do with news out of Dollar General this weekend.
Yes, let's do it. All right. Headline number one, according to one of OmniTalk's favorites, Sam Silverstein at Payments Dive, Dollar General plans to go to self-checkout only in 200 of its nearly 18,000 stores this year. The pilot comes on the heels of Dollar General's plan to roll out self-checkout machines to 11,000 stores in total by the end of this year. Now, Dollar General Chief Operating Officer and 2022 OmniStar, by the way, Jeff Owen had this to say on a recent earnings call, quote, associates in stores participating in the pilot will still be able to assist shoppers during checkout, but the company believes that they will be better serving customers by handling other tasks, end quote. Chris, what have you got to say about this one?
Yeah, and man, this one's tough for me. I'm quite honestly, I think like I'm conflicted. Conflict is the word I would use. Like, I don't actually know how to think about this yet. And I think that's important actually in how they're doing it. I'll get to that in a second. But, I think, on one hand, given the economic headwinds, I think it makes sense to test this. And 200 out of the 18,000 stores is a hell of a good sample size without impacting your total chain all that much. So I think it makes sense for them to do that. But I wonder if they're going to find the efficiency gains that they think that they are. For example, like we've talked about on the show a lot, for a truly self-checkout only store to work, you still have to have at least one person surveying the lanes. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you've got some computer vision assisting it too, like what we talked about with Kroger and NRF earlier this year. But you also have to have a controlled entry and exit point to keep theft at a minimum. And that's really key. And so the idea I have here is like how they design this is going to be key. But my guess is that they're still going to go back to wanting the hybrid solution because I just wonder if that's the better solution in the long run when your universe is self-checkout only or cashiers. Like, I'm keeping the just walk out stuff out of this, right? Because that's a whole nother realm. If you're going down this road, I think the hybrid solution is probably better in the long run. I don't think you're going to get as much operational efficiency gains as you think you are from going to self-checkout because of the dynamics of how the customers engage with it. And, the other thing I bring up too is like Walmart tried this, in Arkansas. We haven't seen them roll it out to a large degree either, but a lot more people are going with the hybrid approach and finding success there. So that's why I'm conflicted. I don't think this is going to lead to like this big self-checkout pot of gold at the end of the day, but I think it's worth trying. And who knows, you could be surprised. So net, I love it. I do love it. I just don't know what to make of it, but it's great as an experiment.
Yeah, I think you call out a lot of important points. And I think it's also important to clarify that, this is 200 stores of 18,000 stores that they have. Like, I think this is an important move just because of the size of retailer that Dollar General is and the amount of stores that they have in the country. And I think that, no matter what, they're going to give this a solid try at those 200 stores. I think it's important to call out that, while it does allow staff to help, the customers, and some of that help to the customers might be helping them do self-checkout on their own. Right. I think that it still gives some stores the flexibility and freedom to start to fulfill orders that they're going to be fulfilling for instant delivery providers. Like they're supposed to be expanding produce. They're supposed to be expanding healthcare into some of their stores too. Right. And I think as we start to see an increase in delivery coming from those stores, that this could be the key that kind of gets them to that end game of having the people on the floor not be tethered to a cash register. There are clearly going to be like challenges with theft. There's going to be challenges with other things, but I think those can all be solved for as the most part, as much as possible with like Everseen and Kroger, what we're talking about there, where there's the screens that are up by the self-checkout. But at the end of the day, I think that this is really going to be successful for Dollar General in seeing how their customer responds to a completely converted store to, using something like self-checkout, and might open the lanes for them to start to test things like just walk out technology that you're talking about further down the road. Because ultimately, in order to keep operating costs low, they're going to have to figure something out. They cannot staff stores to serve the stores the way that they need to with the way the current model is running. And I think that they're going to have to, tell the Dollar General customer, look, you either, have to do self-checkout when you come to this store the same way that like you have to bring your own bags to IKEA. It's part of that's part of how you get a less expensive product. you're going to have to self-checkout here. And the customers will have to decide from there, like, look, am I going to go to the place that, you know, there's a checkout person, or am I going to keep going to the dollar store where I can get things at a lower price point, but I have to do the checkout on my own. So just, I mean, a lot to think about there, but I do think that this is an important thing for people to be paying attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, what's opened my eyes to is I think, self-checkout's gotten a lot better, especially over the last couple of years.
Yes.
And even today, like the announcement from Circle K with Mashgin, which we won't cover next week, but we'll cover probably at a future episode because it's pretty big, where there's new types of self-checkout machines coming into play too, that make this even quicker and more efficient. And people are just more used to it now. And so, yeah, but I think ultimately it'll depend on the design by which they decide to put this and implement it in the store. But it's going to be fun to watch, because I could see a day where everyone is comfortable with it too. And therefore you could get the efficiency gains. And the other point too, Anne, that you brought up, which I think is great, is like, it's not just about helping customers. It's also just helping with all the other tasks you have to do in store now, like arranging curbside pickup orders and things like that.